friends, it's Jeannie. Today I'm creating a card for the Not Too Shabby design team. Not Too Shabby is an online crafty shop and she carries a bunch of different brands as well as her own stamp line like this one. Today I'm creating a slimline scene card using the Not Too Shabby Sprinkled with Love stamp set, which features a bunch of confections, but I decided that I wanted to focus on this cupcake. For the scene card, I decided to create a 2-tier cupcake holder with 4 cupcakes on each level. I previously stamped out my scene in a no-line ink because I thought I would do some no-line coloring, but once I realized how much coloring there would be along with all the details of the frosting, I decided against it and instead used it as my template to restamp my scene. I stamped out the first cupcake, which you'll see the full image of, then masked it, and I'll have 2 cupcakes on each side and one also behind. With a cupcake holder, you also have a stem in the middle that holds the 2 tiers together. So I am also masking off a strip to be that stem. I do that because the cupcake would be behind that stem. So I will be drawing this in pencil, and then I'll also use my pencil to draw in the trays. Usually with my scene cards, I create them with very simple lines, nothing too fancy, and even if you don't really draw, you can use a ruler. By putting your stamp images into scenes, you're really stretching your sets. Instead of just doing very simple cards, you can make them as elaborate as you would like. I personally really like the whole masking and creating scene cards. And for this video, I'll be only showing one of the 2 tiers. So all the stamping, I'll show you one part, and then all the coloring, I'll show you one part because they're basically the same. I do the same technique and coloring for the top and bottom, so there's no real need to show you both. Otherwise, this video would be really, really long. And I am not that chatty of a person to do voiceovers. I think that I find doing scene cards really difficult because the voiceovers is just basically me talking while I color. And let me know if you actually like that. I don't really lead a very exciting life, especially now in quarantine, but I don't mind chatting with you guys as well and giving you some stories here and there about what I do on a day-to-day basis, or if there's any questions you want me to answer, I can talk about that. I just really don't think I'm that interesting of a person. I'm an introvert, so I kind of stay inside. I don't really go outside, even more so now because of this pandemic that's raging on. For the pencil lines, I'm going to go in with a Micron pen and draw those lines in black ink. This ink is Copic friendly, so I am able to color using Copic markers and not have it run or smear. So you want to keep that in mind when you do create scene cards and you want that black outline around your drawings. For the cupcake holder, I wanted it to sit on a table, and the spacing isn't that great, but I thought that I would add that wood grain detail to the table anyway, just to give it a little bit of texture. I thought that it would just be nice to add, and it's a different color that's in the mix. For the cupcake holder itself, I'm just going to go with silver, which I'm using some cool grays to do. I've kind of started just going in with the darkest color, then going in with a mid-tone and blending everything out with a lighter color. Here I do use 4 Copic colors instead of 3, only because I really wanted the shadows to be very dark, so that's why I went with the C5. You can use 3 Copic markers or 2 if you wanted to, and you really just don't need that many in your collection if you don't reach for them often. Grays I find are the most versatile color, and it is one of the colors that I wouldn't mind getting almost all of them. I actually just have the odd numbers for the C's and I don't have any of the evens, and I think that it has worked perfectly fine for me. So once I will color in the trays, I went back in with the C5 for the shadows right underneath the cupcake. And again, I'll go in later to add even more shadow because I thought that it just really needed that dimension. And you can just color it however you like. I actually have been messing with some coloring techniques to see like what I like or what I don't like. That isn't the typical blending. I kind of want to play with the white highlights and contrast with markers, and we'll see how that goes. It's a lot of experimenting. Then I'm also going to color in the stem for the cupcake holder in the same gray, and there's the little part at the very top as well, because this is a 2-tier holder, and you know there's going to be something on top of it. I decided to do a slimline card because I thought that I would be able to incorporate the 2 tiers. For the cupcake wrappers, I actually decided to use the paper pack from Not Too Shabby. It's called Frosted and Tufted. There's this quilted pattern on one side with like chocolate dripping, and then on the other side there's polka dots and hearts and very like subtle, simple patterns. And I decided to do some paper piecing because I just didn't want to color in all those wrappers. And pattern paper isn't one of my favorites. I rarely use them in my cards, but I've started to use them for paper piecing, and I think that it's actually really fun to do, especially with images that have large bold lines that make it really easy to cut out, and this was one of them. So I cut out 3 of these for the 3 cupcakes on bottom, and then I cut out another 3 for the ones on top. And I took my Memento Tuxedo pen to mark the edges so no white will be showing once I glue everything down. Before I glue it down, I decided that I was going to color in the cake portion, and I'm just going in with some browns to color that up. I decided that this is going to be a very pink card. I love the color pink. It's one of my favorite colors, and I don't mind using a lot of it. So the cupcake wrappers will be pink, and we'll have some of the frosting be pink as well, and white. So I think it turned out really cute, in my opinion anyway. So you'll notice that I have the full cupcake wrapper cut out for all the pieces, but in the scene itself, the 2 cupcakes on the side are only partials. And here's how I figured out where to cut on those wrappers. Went ahead and glued down the little paper pieced area for the full cupcake, and I'm using that mask I created for stamping out this scene, and I just laid it down right on top of the pattern paper, used a pencil and traced the lines, and I just went in with a pair of scissors and followed that line. And I'm not going to worry about the other side because I'll be able to trim it down anyway against that card panel. So I'll know exactly where to cut it off. I'll just use a pair of scissors to do that. So once I have my piece all cut out, I'll edge it with my Memento Tuxedo pen again, so there's no white parts showing, and I'll glue it down. And then here, I'll just go ahead and trim off the excess, and it looks like I colored it in and have all these intricate patterns on it. I think that the paper is really versatile because it's just so subtle, and that's my preference too, because I really stay away from busy patterns because I find it competes with your images and the rest of your card. But if it's very subtle like this, it totally works, especially for the cupcakes. I think that cupcake wrappers come in this anyway. I did the same for that other side of the cupcake, and I'll do the same for the top tier of cupcakes. So what have you guys been doing in quarantine? I know that a lot of people have started traveling again, have started kind of resuming normal life, and it's really hard to say normal because I'm just still not used to wearing masks and having to like social distance, and I'm still very cautious of who I am seeing. For my work, I am actually remote for almost the rest of the year up until September, and that's a moving target regardless. So who knows, that might change. And at the beginning of the year, I decided that I would actually venture out to Golden Gate Park. I live very close to it, and I actually have another park on the other side of me. So I just will walk out to Golden Gate Park in the afternoon and kind of explore. And I didn't even realize that Golden Gate Park is about 20% larger than Central Park in New York. And I am a native. I've never really lived outside the city except for school. It's something I've never really explored because there's just so many other things to do, and I'm actually just kind of more of an indoor person. I don't really like going outside anyway, but because of the pandemic, it's kind of taking a break from work and going to kind of have like a mental break and being able to be with your thoughts and or just ignore your thoughts has been really helpful for me. I've been really appreciative that I can just walk a couple blocks down the street and I'll be at a park where I can just wander around. So I've been exploring different areas in the park, and there's like this art installation that we have. It has these lights that shine at nighttime, and they have like different patterns, and I think I shared it on my Instagram as well. If you don't follow me, I share some tidbits of my life on my Instagram, and I'll have it in the description box if you're interested. I've just been doing that. I've kind of been picking a location to walk to almost every single day, and I'm starting to run out. I mean, there's still a ton, but I kind of have kept it within a 3-mile radius because going across the city is about 4 or 5 miles or so, but on foot, plus the time that it takes for you to come back too, is also taken into consideration because I don't take the bus anymore. So everything has to be on foot. So that kind of limits me to where I can go or how far I can go, especially because it also gets dark pretty early. Hopefully in the spring, with the sun setting much later, I'll be able to venture out a little bit further. So back to the card really quickly. I decided to color 2 of the cupcakes with pink frosting, and then 2 of the cupcakes with these grays, which I intended for it to be white frosting. Anytime you are coloring white, you want to use grays for the shadows and leave a good portion of the area white, so then it will appear white. Also keep in mind that it looks dark here, but Copics do dry down, and that's one of the things I learned where I freaked out because it would look dark and gray and gross, but it does dry down and it eventually looks white. So for all the coloring, I just put a shadow with the darkest color right underneath each of the folds of the frosting. Then I'll go in with my midtone and blend out with my lightest. And for the frosting toppings, I'm just going in with pink for the white frosting and red for the pink cupcakes. So for the sentiment, I'm going to be stamping it out on a piece of white paper, and I'll trim it down to a strip. And I'm putting it on the card, the only place that I can see that really works without blocking out all the work and coloring I did. But yeah, that's it for today's card. I hope you enjoyed it, and please join me back again for another video. Bye!